Welcome to the Coaching Book Club podcast, the show that empowers coaches through books. I'm Christy Stuber, here with my friend and co-host Ken McKellar, and today we're talking about The Possible Self, A Leader's Guide to Personal Development by Maja Djikic. Here's what you can expect in this episode. First, we'll share a quick overview of the book, what it's about, and why it matters to coaches like you. Next, we'll break down some key takeaways that stood out to us and how they might inspire you to reflect on your own motivation and energy use. Finally, we'll talk about how we've been applying these ideas in our own coaching practice with some strategies you can experiment with in your own life. Hey, Ken, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
Good, 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 good. So, what did you think of this book?
I'm gonna have to bring the smoke early. Gonna bring the smoke early because last night I actually I like to use YouTube to try to figure out things. And one of the things I was doing was a Rubik's cube, right? Like, okay, let me help me with the solution with this, and that is a different story for a different day. But before I got to the 10-minute solver of Rubik cubes, I lost about an hour and a half just strolling through stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, where did that hour and a half go to? Time thief, time thief, time thief. And that is what I got out of this book. How to manage my thieves of time.
Very, very good. Very good. Um, I'm trying to think of the appropriate segue into how what I got on this book, and I'm just can't find one, so I'm going to jump into it. So I, although I think there's something here, what really hit home for me in this book is what she said that uh, we don't grow by just changing behaviors. We grow by integrating all aspects of ourself, the mind, the emotions, the body, our motivations, and our past learnings. And I think the connection I'm making right now, hearing your story, is maybe there was a behavior change. You wanted to solve the Rubik's Cube, but the why, the motivation underneath it wasn't as clear, which what made it so easy for those time thieves to sneak in and take over. What do you think?
I like that. I like the way you say that, and you know, the possible self, or I'm thinking what's possible with the self when you add intentionality with this, right? Add awareness. And I think that probably was the biggest takeaway from this book was just being aware of distractors versus restores, right?
Hmm.
Um, Learning and relearning. Oh man, I do a lot of relearning. How many how many times I read a book? I may read a book one time to get a sentence. I like, can't remember that sentence, and I read the whole book. Like all that relearning, rather than holding on to learning. So those are some of the takeaways I got out of
Yeah, no. I mean, how many times have I suggested a book for this podcast and you say, "Well, I've already read that book. Let's do it again."
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I like what you just said about the relearning because that was a big takeaway for me as well. This idea about the constructs that we have created in our lives, throughout our lives, and that closed constructs, which can be identified as those that are generalized across situations, people, and time. Um, that closed constructs are what stop us. And the reminder then as a coach, you know, core competency, evoking awareness, and facilitating client growth is helping my clients notice, name, and either reframe or relearn those constructs or beliefs so they can update their self-concept. Um, that there's nothing wrong with them, but updating that will help them think for themselves in new ways.
yeah. I like that, especially the updating part in terms of really taking in like the stuff that's usable,
Hmm.
right? And then letting go of the stuff that's not.
Hmm.
I mean, stuff that kept me safe and content when I was 9 is not necessarily useful when I'm like 3 days before death. That's
Yeah.
old, folks. That's old. That's old. That's
It's
getting so
many,
old
many decades for you.
that I passed the Grim Reaper at the 7-Eleven the other day. He said, "What's up? What's up? Just getting coffee."
No, 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 friend. But it is a good reminder. I went for a walk with my yoga teacher yesterday and we were talking about limited beliefs and I remember her saying to me, she's like, I'm surprised that you have limiting beliefs. And I said, oh gosh, I can tell you what mine is. Right? Mine is I'm not good enough, and it's been there my entire life across every sphere of my life. It's one I'm still fighting with and struggling with. And so when I read the book, I was reminded, right, that is a closed construct that's holding me back because it has been across all aspects of my life and all throughout my life. So it's one I keep working with.
Yeah,
Yeah. What's
I
another
like
takeaway for you from the book?
I like what you started off with at the beginning is, the three minds. And what was it that she said? She talked about blindly versus questioning.
Hmm. This is
You
one I
remember
don't
that?
remember as much.
Yeah. So, because she talked, okay, a little bit about that, but where I'm going to just peel away from it is like what comes up for me now, right at this moment,
Hmm.
is curiosity versus acceptance. Like, do they even sit at the same table? Or are they co-workers on the same task? In a coaching, as a coach, very curious about what's coming up, about what may happen in this session. And at the same time, I'm believing that this person is a complete whole being. Right? Believing that this person, so they got this, and I'm just um a character in their movie, like not a leading role.
Hmm. Yeah. So as a coach, how do you how do you balance that curiosity and acceptance with your clients?
Well, I don't know if it's a balancing act. I think both of them are on the same side of the beam, because it is acceptance 100%,
Mhm.
right? Now, the curiosity is not about who they are. It's more, I mean, it's about who they are, but it's also about, what they're saying, what their goals are, and how that matches up. I'm really curious about their story, right? And their story is generating limiting beliefs. Then I'm get real curious about that. I still accept them as a being, not the limitation of the being.
Thank you for clarifying. So the acceptance is of the person as a whole being, as a whole self, and
Hmm.
then curiosity is about um, what they're bringing in, and it might be different aspects of themselves that is coming up. Um, it's making me think about the takeaway I had, which ties also back to your Rubik's Cube story from last night, that it's easy as coaches to take whatever the person's coming in with as the thing, right? I want to stop procrastinating. I want to speak up more. And that's not looking at the whole or even accepting the whole self. It's just focusing on the behaviors, which is just the very, very tip top. And maybe you could have eventually solved that Rubik's Cube, but would that have really scratched the itch that you were trying to scratch, which is that deeper down want and desire fueled by, motivation and informed by past learnings?
You know what? Oh, wow. You just said something that made me think of David Drake. He does narrative coaching. We have to probably have to do his book. Um, and one of the things he says is, get the story first. does a get in the story first before, because they may come in with one thing, but after revealing their story, it could be something totally different.
Mm.
So when I'm talking about the Rubik's Cube, I'm leading with what my story is. I've never done it. Matter of fact, I can't do it. I've tried a lot when I was little. The Rubik's Cube's been around a minute, messing with folks, right? And so I got support, from YouTube. But my story was I couldn't do it until I got a part of it. Don't even remember. But that story shifted to, wow, this is cool, right? It shifted from I can't do it to this is cool. And then after I did it again, now I do it for relaxation. I can't do it in 30 seconds like some people do, but I get relaxed. It's just fun turn these little things around. And then once I get it, that satisfaction, like, let me look at it and then give it to my daughter. Okay, shuffle it up again. And then she sings a song. Daddy.
Yeah. Well, and Maya talks about that in her book about using gratitude as a way to extend our willpower. So you being grateful, like, oh, I got that side, and then there's a whole little party and celebration, then extends your willpower to keep trying to go to the next thing.
Right. Nice. Nice.
Hmm. Yeah. That made me think about at the end of sessions when I'll ask clients, what do they want to acknowledge about themselves? Because and now looking at that, that ties into, oh, this is expressing gratitude for something that's been accomplished, something that I've done maybe different or new that I want to celebrate. And that extends
Celebrate
my
the
power.
session. Nice. Nice. And
Mm.
you've been working on your craft. I hear you've been working on your craft. I hear it. And everything you said. You okay, master coach. Okay, I hear you.
Not yet. Still working on it. That's what I love about these books and talking about this. So it does help me integrate more and more of the learning and more understanding about what these core competencies are really about when I can get underneath them. And so it's not just the thing, but I understand the purpose behind it. Kind of
Yeah,
like what we're talking about with this book, actually, right? The competencies of behavior. But for me to understand everything around it is what helps me get the motivation and the willpower then to want to bring it into my craft and my practice.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that she talked about in the book was sticky emotions.
Mm.
She had mentioned four of them:
Hmm.
fear, anger, sadness, and joy and pain. No, she didn't say pain, but she said joy, and happiness,
Hmm.
right? Um, and I have a question for you.
Mm.
Well, in coaching, like how do these sticky emotions show up for you? Mainly talking about the first three: fear, anger, and sadness. Or do they even show up for you? Do you get into your Zen motion and you're like, ooh, that stuff sits at the back door of my coaching?
Hmm. And so, how do I experience fear,
Hmm.
anger, and sadness in my coaching as I'm coaching? Is that the question?
That's a question.
Yeah. I mean, I'm immediately what comes to mind is my journey I'm still on towards MCC and how all of those have come up at different points and they can really stop me from wanting to move forward. So I can feel, you know, angry that this recording that I thought was so great when I had my mentor listen to it, she pointed out one fairly major thing and I'm like, oh, and it just that anger can get me stuck. How does that connect to the sticky emotions that she talked about?
Well, I don't know in terms of how she talks about, because I'm bringing it into my own lap
Hmm.
in terms of how, like, it's like, like how do I let go? Because you talked about letting go basically.
Hmm.
How long do you hold on to stuff? And she gives, read the book, people. I say this every
Hmm.
time, but it's because she gives some pointers about. how to really walk through some stuff. So
Mhm.
read the book. But it brings up like those are a real thing. Like, you
Mhm.
know, oh, that comes up in coaching, I mean, or around coaching, fear. And I'm talking about like a comedian. I think it was, I forget one of the comedians, Steve Harvey. They asked Steve Harvey, they said, Steve Harvey, what are you going to miss about retiring from going live on stage, doing stand up shows? And he said, I tell you one thing I'm not going to miss is just being so nervous and anxious and fearful about going on stage just before I go on. And I was like, Stephen Harvey? Wow. Right? And that gave me some woosah because before first session, very first sessions, like you haven't met the person, I mean, or chemistry session, you haven't met them. There's some of that, that fear and like little anxiousness about, what this how it's gonna be. You know, I've had so much success in many sessions going well that I can step in there with pretty decent confidence, but that fear and some kind of anxiousness, it knocks on my door. And sometimes when I don't answer, it goes to the back door. And when I don't answer that, it goes to the window, banging on the window like it's a concert or something, like it's drumline or something.
Right. Well, they don't go, right. I think the point is they don't go away. They're going to be there until we explore them and address them and unpack them. And I think what I've taken away from this book as well, which is a reminder for me, is that emotions are they're data, they're information, they're signals. And I have experienced coaching where I've expressed a lot of emotion and my coach has not addressed it at all. And it just leaves me wanting. It just leaves me feeling incomplete to not acknowledge this emotion and explore like what is that emotion? What is that anger telling you, Christy, when your recording wasn't as perfect as you thought it was? So some great takeaways. What are what are you going to bring into your coaching practice?
And pain. What am I gonna bring to pain? Now, I know this just reminds me, that it's a process. I mean, figuring out the Rubik's Cube was a process, and enjoying that process through beginning to end to now, just holding on to it every time I do it. Um, it's a process, and so stuff is gonna come up, and like not knowing that's the beginning of a process. Whether it's me, the coach, not knowing, or it is the client not knowing.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think it's so tempting sometimes to just check off the box around the behavior when the client comes with it. And so I think the intentionality for me is um, not to do that. And secondly is to think about it as a process that I don't need to connect my value as a coach. And we talked about this in a previous book. My value as a coach isn't necessarily solving a problem in that moment, and that it's okay to pull back, dig deeper, and look at the whole process. And that question that we ask while contracting, what's important about this for you right now, gets towards the root of her book, which is those wants,
Mhm.
right? What was important about solving the Rubik's Cube for you right now is what makes it a journey, not just a check.
And then and even understanding that because it wasn't important for me to solve it at the beginning. It was celebration at the end when it was solved.
Mm.
But at the beginning, it was, let me see this thing that I couldn't do, and let me try to figure this thing out and just
Yeah.
spending time with it. I mean, to me, that was, and it became fun. So the journey was the process because I didn't think I could do it. But the goal was definitely not to solve it because that wasn't in my wheelhouse. until it was.
Until it was. Yeah. Yeah. Maya Djikic's book, The Possible Self, has a beautiful framework, has a lot of tools and ways of following her framework. Also, a lot of great reminders about um, the elements of the core competencies in coaching. And so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here, Ken, if that's okay with you. Yeah, great. All right, listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe to the Coaching Book Club podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And we'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Follow us for more coaching insights and updates about upcoming episodes. And before we wrap up today, we want to remind you about an upcoming event in October. ICF Converge 2025 will be in San Diego, and Maja Djikic is one of the signature speakers. So if you want to go hear her live, you're able to there. You're also able to connect with coaches across the world. Ken, you and I met there in person for the first time in Orlando 2 years ago, and I'm excited to go back. So if you're planning to attend ICF Converge, let us know. We'd love to see you there. And thanks for being part of this community. And until next time, happy coaching.